Well, for more on the hobbies and businesses that are trending amid social distancing, I spoke with Braun. He's a collector of collectors and the CEO of hobbyDB. And I began by asking him about the trends and interesting developments he's noticing since COVID-19 became part of our everyday lives.
Well, it hasn't changed from much before, just the intensity has. hobbyDB is the natural extension to Wikipedia. We document every collectible ever made. We believe eventually we'll have 100 billion of them. And so where Wikipedia has a page on Hot Wheels, we've got 50,000. We've got about 100,000 Hard Rock Cafe related merchandise items like pins and magnets and shot glasses and stuff like that. There are probably about 2 million Disney items to document. And we have a lot of people that have done this anyway. We got 6,000 volunteers, and we got a very, very healthy intake of new recruits that have either used the site to just do some research and now want to help building it, or have come to us fresh and saying, okay, I got every Hard Rock Cafe bear ever made, and I now want to document that. And of course, we love that.
So then for people who are new to hobbying, what is it about hobbying that people find so valuable, especially at a time like this during a pandemic?
Well, it gives you something to do, right? I mean, hobbies is everything from, we talked about earlier, having a Lego set that you can build on your own or with your kids, to the actual box that you keep safe, and you want every Lego set ever made since the 1950s. So it's just a pleasure to work with hobbies. There's a famous German author from the 17th century, Goethe, who said, collectors are happy people. And it's true.
Well, certainly you would hope so at a time like this. We could all certainly use some joy. Now, my dad always used to collect stamps and also foreign currency. Are there any sort of long lost hobbies that you're seeing making a comeback?
Well, all of that. I mean, stamps is a huge subject. A big stamp fair in China, which is the major place where this happens, can draw 100,000 people on a weekend. Coins is big, banknotes, and anything that you had as a child. So if you grow up playing with little model cars and you're 40 now, this is the time when a lot of people come back and collect them.
Now, obviously, sometimes hobbies and collectibles can become costly depending on what it is that you're trying to collect and how you have to preserve it. How can people seek out sort of collectibles that really have long-term value?
I think you need to decide, are you in it for the gain or for the fun? Like if you, for example, buy Lego sets and you build them, you're probably not going to earn money on it. If you, on the other hand, build them and put them aside, then that has been very lucrative for the last 20 years.
What have been the most valuable things that tend to get collected? Which ones tend to really retain their value the most?
I think anything that can make the generational jump. What I mean by that is, people that were raised in the 50s and 60s do a lot of model kits, but the new generation hasn't really taken that up. So all those model kits have to eventually be sold from the old generation to the next generation. That's not going to happen in that space. Well, Lego it does. Perfect example is tin plate robots from the 30s and 40s. They've already done the third generational jump because they're such nice objects that they just have that appeal, that evergreen appeal that will carry through. Star Wars items, the first trilogy Star Wars items, I think will always keep their value. If you started collecting the second series of 3 movies came out, then you're out of luck. I don't think you're going to make much money on that because there's just too much of it out there.
So then in terms of how you sort of define hobbying and collecting, obviously some people using this free time to collect, it can become a bit of an obsession if that's pretty much all you focus your time on. How does one avoid making their hobby basically an emotional crutch?
Well, I mean, ideally, your hobby is also a bridge to social interaction with others. And then some hobbies are better than others in that regard. So if you do slot car racing, you obviously need somebody to race with. So that's a good one in that regard. If you collect figures like this one, yeah, maybe it becomes a crutch. But there are so many Facebook groups out there where you can talk to other people and you can reminisce about the movie when you were a kid and saw that series. So I think it's just like everything else. Just don't do too much of it.
And in terms of, how people are really spending their time, a lot of people at the end of this will sort of look back and say, did I learn a new skill? Did I take on something new? In terms of people who are new to hobbying, are there particular trends that you're seeing there?
You really start collecting because you got your first object or you got something back that you had as a child. And initially it's just you're acquiring them because you like them. But then you go deeper into it. Who made this item? When was it made? How many different variations exist? Who was the designer? And all that kind of stuff. And that's what we see a lot of now because people have that time. It's always been the thing that they wanted to do but didn't have the time to. And now it gets done.
And just lastly, I want to ask you about tips for people who really want to stay in these hobbies that they've developed now, especially when they've been stuck at home during the pandemic. How can they keep that up and how can technology play a role in that?
Well, I mean, one of the beauties is with online being always on, you can now create your own little museum and share it. We have people that have 25,000 objects in their what we call showcase, and they can share that with people around the globe and get comments and get interactions, and meet new people online, and later when we can in the real world as well.
Still ahead on Global